What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Lock and Cash podcast, Tuesday, October 14th, as we look ahead to week 7 in the NFL. Coming off of a week 6 where we finished a little bit in the green. Wasn't great, but wasn't bad. You can't complain if you profit, right? But it was a small winning week. I think the frustrating part about it was the two straight bets that I loved the most, which was our biggest plays, they both hit. But the parlay that I added lost, and the teaser that I added lost. So we ended up just making out with a little bit of green. But the two that I gave you guys on the pod last week, or my two strongest leans, ended up being the Seahawks plus 1.5. We did take that for 2 units. That came through. The Chiefs was a 3 unit. That's a max for us. That came through. So the two spots that I love the most came through. And the parlay and teaser, I think I got a little too cute. We needed the Bills. If the Bills won on Monday Night Football, that would have been a really nice week for us. We would have made over 3 units on the week, but they lose outright. And it wasn't so much that they lost. The surprising part was that 14 points from the Bills offense. Got to hand it to the Falcons. And the Falcons at the end of that game, man, a lot of mistakes. Second half, Falcons looked awful in the second half. They were trying to give that game away, and the Bills just could not do it. The defense played really well for Atlanta, even though the offense sputtered a little bit late. But, we'll take a green week, and we look ahead now to week 7 in the NFL. I do want to remind you guys, down below in the description, there's a link to the Action app. We are partnered with the Action Network. I drop my free picks on that Action app. So if you want to tail me on some, use the link down below. You can get the app. It's completely free. You can use all their tools, betting splits, percentages, articles from their experts, and then you can also get notifications when I log a free pick on there. So if you want to tail me on some throughout the week, I will be dropping some over there. All right, let's kick things off with our Thursday night football game this week. We've got the Steelers in Cincinnati to take on Joe Flacco and the Bengals. Pitt laying 5.5 on the road. Your total is 43, basically across the board. This is an interesting game. Obviously, it's a divisional game. Pittsburgh looking good last week against the Browns, covering pretty easily in that game. But the Browns offense just couldn't do anything with Dylan Gabriel. Contrast that with the Bengals, who went into Green Bay, and you know what? They lose, but they did cover an inflated line. And you saw some things out of the offense, right? Green Bay's got a really good defense. You can say what you want about, they haven't been super impressive since week 1, but they've got a very good defense, and I think Flacco gives this Bengals offense some life. I think you've got a very live dog in this spot. I don't think Pittsburgh is really that good. I know they're 4-1. I know they appear to be running away with the division. I really don't think they're that good. I think a lot of it has been scheduling, fortunate opponents, matchups. I think the downfall of the Ravens has maybe helped them a little bit. But I think the Bengals are alive in this one. They've obviously on a long losing streak. You're getting a big fat number at home with a home dog, divisional game in prime time. I do think the Bengals can win this game outright. I lean to them with the 5.5. Would have liked to have gone. So I think if this was still at 6, I probably could get around to making a play on this game. But I probably will just lay off at 5.5. But definitely lean to the Bengals. Also a slight lean to the over. I think, like I said, Flacco gives the Bengals some life on offense. The Steelers have been much more aggressive offensively with Rodgers now at the helm. So I think you could see some points in the, 43. You can even get a 42.5 on FanDuel. So I lean slightly to the over, and I think you have a live home dog with the Bengals. All right, let's head over to London. Another international game, another early start this week with the Rams taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. LA laying 3 points, total 45 in this game. The Rams, opposite results for these two teams last week. The Rams got a win, but was it wildly impressive? No. And at what cost? They come away with a few key injuries, Puka being the biggest one, getting hurt. I know he returned to the game, but a lot of the times your adrenaline can kind of mask what the injury really is. And if it is an issue, he may be limited in this one. The Jaguars kind of, I don't want to say got exposed, but kind of finally looked like the team that I thought they would be this year against the Seahawks last week. That was a part of the handicap when I faded them with the Chiefs. I still don't understand how they won that game. And again, this week with the Seahawks, I've been looking for spots to fade the team because I think they've been overperforming a little bit. And it kind of came to fruition as they only put up 12 points in that game. Seattle didn't blow their doors off offensively, but the defense was nails, even with all the injuries in the secondary. So I think you kind of got a glimpse of what the Jags really are. Now, the one thing to remember about this game, very key thing is the Jaguars always make this trip. Every year they play in London, they make this trip. Lawrence has made it a bunch of times. So they are used to this, and that could give them a little bit of an edge in the game. My numbers have this right at 3, so I won't be playing it, but I definitely lean to the Rams. I just wanted to make that point, though, about the Jaguars having to do this trip every year. They could be a little bit better prepared for it. But I like the Rams and McVay in the spot to continue their win streak. The defense looked very nice against the Ravens. I know it's Cooper Rush, but when you have a live home dog like that, you'll see sometimes they perform a little bit better, especially when they're at home. They're dying to stop the bleeding, but the Rams held them in check. They did a good job. The offense only put up 17 points, but again, you got a really strong effort there from the Ravens defense in that game. So not going to take too much away from that, but I think the result that clearly tells us more about one of the teams is the Jaguars' result in that game against the Seahawks. And by the way, if you like the Jags in this game, you already kind of missed. This was 3.5, so the best number of the market is gone. I lean slightly to the Rams laying the 3. All right, headed to the 1 p.m. window. Big spread in this AFC West game with the Raiders headed to Kansas City. You've got 12s popping up now. This was 10.5, 11, 11.5, 12. I'm even seeing 12.5 now. Total 45.5. Chiefs laying the big number at home against Vegas. Obviously, we saw what Kansas City did on Sunday Night Football. Super, super impressive win against Detroit. Detroit was really banged up in their secondary, and you saw Mahomes and company take advantage of it. But the other thing was that they just ran the ball well as well. The offense just looks really good. I think a lot of it, guys, is tied to the fact that their offensive line is playing much better this year and is relatively healthy. And the guys look to be doing a really good job in the trenches, and that is helping them a ton. That's giving Mahomes time to make some of those amazing plays you see him make. Those don't happen if he doesn't have time. And it's opening up holes for the running game as well. The Raiders did take care of Tennessee, fairly easily at home, but this is by no means a good team. I know this is a divisional game. If you don't like the number, I don't blame you. I'm not interested in laying this huge number. And also, the Chiefs have not been great with these double-digit spreads with Mahomes. They tend to just take the lead and kind of just let these games end, and they don't want to run it up or push it. So my small lean, if you want to get cute, Raiders plus 12.5. Maybe wait for a 13 if you can get one, maybe. But another way that I think you could play this game is like Kansas City team total. I would even look at a 10-point teaser with the Chiefs. I always talk about 6-point teasers and the Wong point range, like 2.5 to 8.5, 7.5 down to 1.5. But you can also look at 3-team 10-point teasers and take, KC down from 11.5 to 1.5, and then find 2 other legs to combine it with, buying 10 points. So I would look at those angles as opposed to just playing the Chiefs straight in this one. But definitely think they win the game. The Chiefs, like I said in my previous video, the reaction video, like this is the best 3-3 team you ever see. The Chiefs are 3-3, and they're favored to win the Super Bowl right now at plus 650 at most books. So I think they're the clear number 1 team in the league right now. The Dolphins are headed to Cleveland. Oh man, this was 2.5. We're now seeing the Browns laying 3 at home, 40 flat, basically 40.5 is your total. You look at this game and you think of it of one or two ways, or you look at it one way or the other. You either look at it as buy low on Miami. How on earth is Cleveland laying a full field goal at home with the way their offense looks? This team is horrible. Even though we know the defense is good, you could go that route. The other route is, which I'm more inclined to take, is I think Miami's done. They look like a dead team. McDaniels is a dead man walking. And there are deeper issues here. You heard Tua's comments after the game talking about players late for meetings and all that stuff. And it's not even just that. It's not the fact that it happened. It's the fact that he said it out loud, throwing his teammates essentially under the bus. It's just not something you want to see from your quarterback. So bad leadership on this team, bad coaching, and just bad overall play. I mean, they gave it a shot at home. They should have won that game against the Chargers, but what do I always say on here? I feel like a broken record. Great teams find ways to win and bad teams find ways to lose. And the Dolphins found a way to lose that game somehow. So, it was a valiant effort in the comeback, but at 1-5, McDaniel on the hot seat. Tua's just not playing great overall. Even when they do have a good offensive game, he just is not great out there. I say slight lean to Cleveland, but this was a much better bet at 2.5, which it was for a bit. I just have no interest in playing this game, but my lean is to the Browns. But I personally wouldn't lay 3. The only way I would look at laying 3 is if you could get plus. I know there's an even money 3 out there. If you can get even money, maybe that's a good move. But I don't see Miami winning this game. Another thing that I would like to point out is the Browns have only played 2 home games. They're 1-5. But they played an international game against the Vikings, and they played 3 road games. And obviously they lost all those. But in their 2 home games, guys, 1-point loss to the Bengals with Burrow at quarterback, and an outright win against the Packers. So it's really easy to look at this game and be like, Miami getting 3, whoa. And you can quickly forget that you haven't seen the Browns at home in a while. And in their 2 home games, they should have won, but they won one, and they should have absolutely won the other game. They only lost by 1 to the Bengals because they missed an extra point. So you could be looking at a team that is 2-0 outright as a home dog, but they aren't because of what happened. And then the rest of their games, they've been awful on the road. But I think Gabriel could get a little boost from being at home. The defense certainly gets a boost being at home. I think they can give this Miami offense hell. So I lean Cleveland in this one, but probably won't be playing it. Super interesting game is next up with the Patriots taking on the Tennessee Titans. New England is a 7-point road favorite. Total is 42 in this game. And obviously the big news here is the Titans firing head coach Brian Callahan. So listen, we have to get into it, right? One of the things I've done on here for many years and on my TikToks and shorts and reels is always talk about when the head coach gets fired. If you're getting a good number, run bet the team. They always get the little dead cat bounce, even if it's a terrible team. This worked last year. I was on here with the Saints. They fired their coach. Rizzi, I think, was the interim, and then they beat the Falcons at home outright. So you have these angles, right? It's a little bit trickier in this one. Now, you are getting a full 7. It's a big, fat number. And New England is probably at market high. 3 straight wins, upset the Bills, take care of the Saints. Not a huge deal there, but they're playing great. Drake May looks incredible. So you are getting a big number, and it's probably market high. But remember, it's Vrabel's return to Tennessee, right? So that's another angle you have to consider. You can't just ignore it. They are playing very well, and I mean, you have to really look at the Titans and say, I mean, are these problems even fixable by getting rid of the head coach? I mean, I do think he was a terrible coach, and he had to go. But it just doesn't mean that all of these problems suddenly get solved, right? I think Tennessee can compete a bit defensively in this one. The question is, how much of Cam Ward's struggles so far are you going to pin on Brian Callahan? If you think that him just suddenly being gone is like, oh, Ward's going to find himself, he's going to sling it. The Pats defense is playing well. Ever since Gonzalez came back in the secondary, they're playing very well. They held the Bills to 20 points. The Saints couldn't get to 20 points. It's been impressive what they're doing, and they're atop the AFC East now, and it's legit. They're competing, and so to me, like it's not your usual dead cat bounce for the head coach being fired, because I've got angles on both sides. If I really want to play that, I want to say, oh, this is awesome. I'm getting the home team here at this price, and they just fired their coach, and I also get to fade this team that is, whatever. Maybe they got lucky the week before. There's been nothing fluky about how the Patriots have been winning games. And like I said, Vrabel returning to Tennessee, he's a defense-first coach. Drake May is playing at an insanely high level for a quarterback his age. To me, it's pass, or I put Patriots in teasers, moneyline parlays. I could see the Titans keeping this close, but I would be pretty surprised at an outright win in this one, even with the head coach angle. So that's my thoughts on that game. Saints taking on the Bears. Chicago laying 5.5 at home. 47.5 is the total. Bears coming off of an upset last night. A really nice win for them against the Commanders. Puts them at 3-2 now, competing in the NFC North. Love to see it. Ben Johnson turning things around there. The Saints have played well recently. They were right there with the Pats. They were within one possession. If Drake May doesn't convert that 3rd and 11, I think it was, that wild catch on the sideline, the Saints get the ball, and who knows what happens. All they need is a touchdown with a couple minutes left. So Saints were right there, and that's after they beat the Giants at home. The Saints have been much better than we thought they were going to be. So I lean slightly here to New Orleans with the 5.5, especially because you're getting Chicago off of that upset win in prime time, Monday Night Football, and a little bit fortunate too. The Commanders have the ball with the lead, driving with a couple minutes left. If they get a few more first downs, they can ice that game. But instead, they fumble, and it opens the door up for the Bears. So you want to call that a little bit of a fortunate win? I don't blame you. But a win's a win. They're coming back home now. But I just think, man, laying nearly a touchdown in this game just seems a little rich for me with someone as inconsistent as Caleb Williams, a quarterback that can have a great game, make some incredible plays, but also make some plays that make you scratch your head. And I really like how Spencer Rattler, you look at every Saints game, guys, and the one dud they had was when they went into Seattle and just got annihilated. And some of that was like, remember there was a punt return in that game, I think. There was some fluky turnovers, but, they went into Buffalo. They could have beat the Bills in Buffalo. In hindsight, that should have been a huge red flag on the Bills, who then lost to the Patriots right after that. But they've been in most of their games. Could have beat Arizona, could have beat San Francisco. This is all coulda. I know, but the Saints have played competitively, and I really like the direction Kellen Moore has them going in. I don't see any reason why this game can't come down to a field goal. So I lean to the Saints plus 5.5 in this one. All right, the Eagles taking on the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. Philly's -2 here, 2.5 at some spots across the board. 43.5 is the total. We don't know yet. The big thing about this game is whether or not Carson Wentz will continue to be the starter. We see J.J. McCarthy this week taking snaps in practice, so that has led to this kind of being TBD. When O'Connell was asked about it, he wouldn't commit to either guy. So it looks like we have, I think you're still getting Wentz in this game, but it looks like there's a chance McCarthy could be ready. I just, I don't see why you rush him back. He didn't look great when he was in anyway. He had one comeback win against the Bears of all teams. So it's not, I don't think you need to rush him back, but I also don't think it's going to matter. I like Philly in this game, and I lean to them at -2.5 or better. Because, yes, they've struggled this season. Yes, the offense has looked bad. Maybe there's stuff behind the scenes. They don't look like they're having a great time. The comments are not amazing coming out of there. But you know what? At the end of the day, I think good teams, and maybe they're not a great team anymore, but I think good teams will find a way to figure these things out. This is surprisingly a good matchup for them. Hurts last year improved drastically against the blitz. He's going to see that, obviously, with Flores. He has faced a Flores defense one time before against the Vikings, and the Eagles put up 34 points against them. That was when the Vikings had Kirk Cousins at quarterback, so that's some context there. So I think this could actually be a sneaky get-right spot for their offense. Defensively, I think Philly should have a lot of success defensively in this game. You get Jalen Carter back in this one. He wasn't there for the Giants game, and that really hurt them on the ground with Scatabo gashing them on the ground. If he's back in this one, that'll help a lot. And then Wentz or McCarthy, neither one of those guys is scaring you. You got a good second. This is a good ton of talent on this Eagles team. They're just underperforming a bit right now. I think this game could look a lot like the game where they went into Tampa and they built a big lead and they just held on at the end. But they thoroughly outplayed the Buccaneers for like 3 out of 4 quarters in that game. I think we could see that again in this one here. So I like the Eagles to kind of get right. The offensive metrics are a little bit scary, but go back and look how many times have they lost 3 games in a row. I don't think it's many. I'd have to check, but you're basically saying the Eagles, they lost to the Broncos outright, lose to the Giants outright. Now they're going to lose again to the Vikings outright. Of course it could happen. It's the NFL, but they've got extended rest. You've been upset twice already. And by the way, that Denver game was 17-3 in the fourth quarter. If they hold on to that game, is this line short of 3? I don't think it is. My numbers have it 3.5, which is why I jumped on the 2.5. So I like Philly, and I don't think you'd be getting this line if they hung on. If they won one of those games, if they either hung on against the Broncos or beat the Giants, I don't think you'd be getting below a field goal here. So I like Philly, for better or for worse. Carolina taking on the Jets. Should we even bother? Could this be the first game that we skip on one of these podcasts? We'll talk about it. Carolina -1.5 against New York. 42.5 is your total. You saw what happened with the Jets in that game against the Broncos. Just bad teams find a way to lose. I'm saying it again. Carolina has been much better than expected this year. They're 3-2. Great job by them. Some big wins at home as an underdog. Now on the road, they have not looked as good. Okay, they did get blown out in their last road game by the Patriots, but the Jets are not scaring anybody. The Jets are so incompetent. It's staggering. It's unbelievable. I said this on my reaction video after Sunday was over. I've been a Jets fan for over 20 years, since I was a little kid with my dad. This is the worst Jets team I've ever seen in my life, and I can remember some bad teams. And it's because it goes deeper than what's on the field. The coaching is horrific. The schemes are horrific. Nobody's fooled by anything you're doing. The defense just looks... I mean, I would give the defense a little bit of credit. They held the Broncos to 13 points. But it's just ugly. It's all around ugly for the Jets. And to me, usually you see a team like this that desperately needs that win at home, and they're catching points against a very average team, right? The Panthers are not a good team. They're an average team. And you might think immediately, oh, it's a great teaser leg. You just can't do it here. You can't. How can you do it with what you've seen? There's no way I can get to the point where I can trust them, even if I'm teasing up to 8, 7.5 in this game. So I have to pass. Carolina or nothing. And the line flipped, by the way. Like, it's crazy. The Jets were a home favorite. Now they're a home dog to the Carolina Panthers. That's a new rock bottom. So pass on the game, lean slightly to the Panthers. The Colts are taking on the LA Chargers. This is a really good game. Very interesting. The Chargers laying 1.5 at home. 48.5 is the total on this game. The Chargers got a much-needed win. Man, they needed that win badly against the Miami Dolphins, and they squeezed it out. Somehow found a way to be trailing late in that game. Couldn't believe it. Tua throws the touchdown pass with less than a minute to go. They come down, get a field goal. Okay, all's well that ends well, but it is not looking great if you're the Chargers, all right? The Colts, to me, are a very impressive 5-1, all right? They're a great story. Steichen has been there a few years. He's finally put it all together. The quarterback's playing great. Defense is playing well. The vibes are there. Before the season started, I wouldn't even have thought this game would be close. Chargers, I think, would have been a much better team, but here we are now with a 1-point spread. I think Indy is good in teasers for this one. I think they're going to do a good job on Herbert defensively, and Arumo will come up with a good game plan. The one thing that I'll say here is, you did come out, you blew out the Raiders at home, then you had another home game. You got in the sticky spot, right? There was a bad situational spot there for the Colts, but they were able to fight through it. It was gritty. It was a gritty win. They were down late. They had to come back. Arizona gave them their best shot with Brissett to try to save their season because they had lost 3 straight at that point. So I think the Colts impressed me, even though on the surface it may not be an impressive win against a weaker team. But I thought it was a character win that the Colts came in with that game. So, going from that to now traveling to the West Coast, a lot of questions there. It's kind of one of these games where it's like the spot's not great for either team, right? It's not great for the Colts, but also it's not great for the Chargers because they had to go to Miami all the way to the East Coast. Did not look super good in that game. I mean, they did have a lead, but they let Miami come all the way back. Now you got to come back home. The last time they did this, they came back home. They lost outright to Washington. So you're seeing some patterns there. I think both head coaches are really good. I think the defenses this could be a sneaky under game maybe, even though the total's pretty high. I think it could be a sneaky under game. The one thing that you guys know that I was high on LA before the season, but the one thing that there's still injury problems. The offense does not look great by any means, and Indy's defense I think is good. But another hesitation is there's no home field here really. You're going to have a ton of Colts fans at this game. Chargers and Rams home field are notoriously bad. So I'm not even sure I can get to this number. So I but basically what I'm saying is I think you can make a case for both sides or against both sides. I think you get a close game though. So I like Indy in teasers up to 7.5. Or if you want to wait, I'm seeing a 2 out there. You think you get? I don't think we're going to 2.5, but I would tease the Colts up to 7.5 and try to find another leg to combine it with if you wanted action on this game. I also lean slightly to the under, but this is very likely a game that I just will have nothing on. But I will watch it, though, because this seems pretty interesting. All right, the Giants taking on the Broncos. Looks like we're getting some love for the G-men off of that impressive win against the Eagles on Thursday Night Football because this was Broncos -7, and you're now seeing 6.5s start to pop up. Your total is 40.5. I understand why this total is so low, given how the Broncos just looked against the Jets defense, and now they got to make the trip back home, and that complicates things, and the Giants' defensive front is pretty good. The Broncos' defense looked ridiculously good against the Jets. I mean, it's the Jets, but man, 8 sacks, 9 sacks, whatever they had. No pass. Jets couldn't complete a pass. Just terrible all around. So when I'm looking at this game, I'm like, yeah, I mean, how could you not lean under, right? But I like Denver to just win. Give me them in teasers, give me them in parlays. I'm not scared of the whole Dart thing. He's won 2 games outright as a dog at home. One of them was against a little bit fluky against the Chargers, but the second one was a solid win. They outplayed Philly really just basically across the board. So that was a really solid win. But am I suddenly going to believe, the Giants, they're sitting at 2-4. They're going to go on the road now and go beat the Broncos. Sean Payton, that elite defense. I think that's potentially the best defense in the NFL right now, Denver's defense. I'm not a huge Knicks fan, Bo Nix, but in this game, I think if he gives you 20 points, he'll be all right in this one. So I like the Broncos to just win. Put them in your parlays or teasers, but nothing more than that. I'm not interested in laying a huge number with a team like that at home. But I do think it's a good fade spot for the Giants right after we saw this once before. The Giants won outright against the Chargers, went on the road, and then they lost to the Saints, right? And now they're same thing again. They went outright against the Eagles. Now they're headed on the road. See what happens. But I like Denver. Washington taking on the Cowboys. Commanders -2.5 on the road in Dallas. 54.5, a big total in this game. Saw how they lost last night. That was a rough loss. Washington should have won that game. And had they won that game, had they held on to win, I would have loved Dallas in this one. Just straight up. Plus 115, 20, whatever it is on the money line. Because I think they're going to win this game. I don't love it as much now because of what transpired on Monday Night Football with the Bears stealing the game at the end. I think that'll create a little sense of urgency for the Commanders. But really hard to just get away. This number, I could tweak some things around in my ratings and get the Cowboys favored in this game. I make it a pick, basically, but I'm saying if I tweak a few things around, I could make you an argument that they should be like -1 in the game. But instead, they're +2.5 at home. So I lean to the Cowboys. I like them. I may end up playing them straight up. I may end up putting them in a teaser. Maybe like a Colts-Cowboys teaser could be good. A Broncos-Cowboys teaser. Something like that. But I think Dallas is gonna win this game. That's what I think. Because I don't think Washington's very good. Their rushing game is not as good as it was last year. I know Dallas's defense, trust me, I know. That's why the total is so high in this game. The defense is really bad. But their offense is so good. This is certainly going to be a bit of a high-scoring, high-variance game. But I'm just not seeing the way Dak is playing, if they actually get CeeDee Lamb back for this game, I just don't see how the Commanders get off the field enough. I think Dallas' offense could have a big day in this one. And they're coming off of that tough loss to the Panthers, right? That was a back-and-forth game offensively. Like I said, the Cowboys' defense is not getting anyone excited. But I think offensively here at home, they can do enough to win this game. So I like Dallas as a divisional home dog. I think it's a good spot for them. Packers taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Green Bay is laying 6.5 points on the road in this game. This is a game that I don't want to go anywhere near. Okay, the Packers won against the Bengals, but they didn't cover the big number, -14.5. Now I'm supposed to go lay 6.5 with them on the road. What have they looked like on the road this year? They've played 2 road games. They lost outright to the Cleveland Browns as an 8-point favorite, and then they tied as a big favorite again, -6, I think it was, against the Cowboys. Tied. So two games on the road, 2 very unimpressive performances from the Green Bay Packers. And this is a game where you're probably going to get, we don't know yet. Murray may be back, but if you get Brissett, Brissett played better than Kyler Murray has been playing in that game against the Colts. So you're going to get a live team in Arizona at home who's 2-4, has lost 4 straight. This to me is a terrible spot to back the Packers. I don't want to go anywhere near this game. But at the same time, if it is Brissett once again, you usually know that with these backup quarterbacks, it's the first game. I've said this before, right? The first game where they come in and you want to jump on them. And maybe you're getting them a little bit undervalued. But once they're in and now it's the second week, it usually ends up not going as well. So I could see either one happening in this game. I could see a Packers blowout. I could see the Cardinals winning outright. And that feeling makes me want to stay away from it. I think it's very high variance. I lean slightly to the over. I'll say that just based on my numbers, but no real angle for it. So for me, it's a total pass on this game. I don't think the spot's great for either team. If obviously the Cardinals are certainly the more desperate team if you want to consider that. They absolutely need a win badly. So maybe you take the 6.5 at home. Maybe you wait to see if you get a 7. But I think this might go the other. I think you might see 6s in this game. So in my opinion, it's Cardinals or nothing. But I really just want nothing in this one. All right. Last game on Sunday Night Football game, a really good matchup between the Falcons and the 49ers. This one's all about the line movement, guys. The Falcons were a 4-point dog in San Francisco on the look ahead, then reopened at 3. Now we're down to 2. So this has all been Falcons money here. And look at what they did last night. You can't really blame the market, right? They looked really good against the Bills. Yes, the offense sputtered out a little bit in the second half, but overall the defense did a really good job on Josh Allen. And Bijan had a great game. This is a really tough spot for San Francisco, man. It's not a great spot for Atlanta because they're all going to be on short rest and they're going cross country and they just got a big outright upset at home. But man, the 49ers first you lose Bosa, then you lose Purdy. Now you lost Fred Warner. It's too much at some point it becomes too much to overcome. And the most incredible thing about last week is that they were right there with the Buccaneers. That was a one-possession game late in that game. Baker did his magic thing again where he evaded a sack and converted a long play. I forget if it was 3rd down or 4, whatever it was. But if he doesn't get that, the Buccaneers are punting to the Niners and they have a chance to win. So they have done unbelievably well considering their circumstances. But how much longer can you keep that up? Also worth noting, Shanahan as a home favorite, home chalk is his worst situational spot, below 40% ATS as home chalk. So I think here, again, if you get Purdy back for this game, okay, I'm listening. But I don't want to back Atlanta at less than 3 because I already missed the market on this one, right? So 2.5, would I tease the Falcons? Sure. It's Falcons and teasers I like. But you still got to see, are you getting Mac Jones in this game? Are you getting Brock Purdy in this game? But I think the main theme of this game is like, you've got certain teams, and we'll talk about another one next, by the way. You've got certain teams that are running on borrowed time or running on fumes, whatever you want to call it. Teams that, this is going to crash and burn any week now. And the 49ers are one of those teams. The final score of that Tampa Bay game was not indicative of what really happened. They were in that game the entire time. They could have won it at the end. So the fact that they're able to do this week in, week out with all the injuries, eventually it's gonna fall, right? So lean Atlanta, like them in teasers. Wait to see who's starting at quarterback for the 49ers, though. The next game, another team that I think is on borrowed time, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, headed to Detroit, taking on the Lions. -4.5 was the spread in this game. Now we're seeing 5s and 5.5s. I agree with the movement. This is one of the games that I have action on right now, but I'm choosing to play Detroit in a moneyline parlay instead. So I'm not going to be playing them ATS, but I do like them ATS. My numbers have this at 6.5-ish. So I do think there's still some value even at 5.5. And I think this could be a game where Detroit blows their doors off because Tampa is now. Tampa is one of the luckiest. Not to say luckiest. There's no real word to describe it, but they're one of the most fortunate 5-1 teams you'll find with the way they've won games, right? Just across. You go back to week 1. Literally, Atlanta could have won that game at home. Tampa was fortunate to get out of there with a win. They were fortunate to get out of Houston with a win when they were trailing. They had another game-winning drive once again. Fortunate to get out. The Jets were leading. They needed a game-winning drive against the Jets to win. It's every single week. And then last week again, the big 4th down that Baker converts to basically ice the game for them. But before that, you were going to have to punt, and San Fran was going to have a chance to win the game. So Tampa has been playing with fire week in, week out. This is how I was talking about the Jaguars last week, and then they put up 12 points against the Seahawks. So this is a game where I think Detroit is off of a loss. They got beat up pretty well on Sunday Night Football, but they weren't healthy. Yes, they lose Branch for this game, but you're now coming back home to where it's a bit more comfortable. You get the little extra rest because you played Sunday night, you're playing Monday night. And man, Campbell off a loss, 11-0, last 11 losses. As a home favorite, less than 6, 9-3 against the spread. I think the number's a little bit short, and I think this could be a game where it's like the Lions just score 30 plus points and it's not close. I really do think you could see that in this one. So, and maybe some of that luck that Tampa's been having kind of regresses the other way. Not that Tampa's a bad team by any means, but no team, like I just mentioned with San Francisco, no team can continue to win at this rate or the way they're winning games. So I like Detroit in that one. The total, nothing really for me there. I make it right at 52. So final game of the week is the Houston Texans taking on the Seattle Seahawks. This is a sneaky, very good game to finish off the Monday Night Football doubleheader. Seattle laying 3.5 now at home. Total is 40.5 in this game. A couple things here to consider. Houston's coming off of the bye, so that's one thing. Prior to the bye, how did they look? Well, they rattled off 2 straight wins. One of them was against the Titans, and that game was very close late. The offense did not look good. Then they go to Baltimore. Offense looked great. Now, what's the caveat there? The Ravens were basically playing a second-string defense, right? Everybody was hurt. So the big question here is, what does the bye do for the Houston Texans? Have they figured anything out offensively, or will we just see the same old team that we've seen before? One thing that I like here that gets me leaning to Houston with the 3.5 is kind of like how their season has gone, right? So they open up the season at the Rams. They hold the Rams to just I think it was 14, 13 points. They lose by 5, whatever it was. But they were right there in that game, could have covered. The loss to Tampa was obviously the big one that sticks out. They're winning that game 19-14 late in the game. Should have been able to close it out. Baker makes some insane plays to go steal the game. Obviously, then they beat the Rams. They beat the Ravens. They beat the Titans. But this is a team that could have had a couple of games swing their way, and we'd be talking about them much differently. Now, I don't love them overall. I'm not willing to buy anything on Houston going forward. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to clear their win total or anything like that. But I do think this is a solid spot. Another thing to note here, Seattle at home under McDonald as a favorite, 3-9 against the spread. As a home favorite, the 12th man essentially priced in Seattle. And I think that when this was at 3, you could make a case, much stronger case for the Seahawks, who just got a road win, now have to come all the way back home. And Houston has the rest advantage. But I think when you're giving me the hook, 3.5, I like the Texans. And remember, the total here, totals can inform you a lot. Total's 40. So I'm getting 3.5 in a game where basically whichever team gets closest to 20 points is going to win. I don't see why. I think the hook is going to be key in this game, which is why I'm grabbing 3.5. I think the hook could decide. 2017, 23-20, 17-14. I think you get that type of game here, unless my suspicions of the bye week helping Houston come to fruition. If that actually happens, they come out a little bit more juiced on offense. Here's what I'll say. I think you need 17 to 20 points here from the Texans to cover the spread. That's what I'll say. Because their defense, and the Seattle secondary is still banged up. They did play well against the Jags, but they're still really banged up. Houston's O-line certainly problematic. But on the other side, the Texans should be able to get pressure. They're great in the secondary. They should be able to give Darnold issues. I see this as a very low-scoring, close game, 21-18, 23-20, something like that. And I think the hook will come in handy with the Houston Texans. So that rounds out our Week 7, guys. So far I've had 3 releases so far for Week 7. I mentioned a couple of them, gave you my leans on every game. If you want to get the full releases for the rest of the season, we're up over 10 units so far this season on all selections. So if you want to get those, there's deals for you down in the description. The Action app, which is free, that's where I track my free picks. You can get that down in the description. You can also get my free pick text messages. Everything is down there. Just take a look down below if you're interested in any of that. And I'll probably see you guys, I will see you guys again later in the week to wrap up after the market settles into place, and probably give you like a best bet, one of my favorite bets. I will say this is one of those weeks where nothing's really jumping out at me like it was last week with Seattle and with Kansas City. I loved both of those spots. I don't really have one of those this week, but there are some spots that I think if the lines move in our favor, or I get some good injury news, there could be some spots that I jump on. So I'll keep you guys posted. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching as always.